That's the charter or the recommendations starter document. There we go. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and thank you for your continued interest and involvement in helping the City of Liberty figure out what they should or maybe shouldn't do in regards to updating the police facility, expanding it, that sort of thing. Tonight's really, as I mentioned in the email with sending out to Jen, this is kind of really a big night because this is where we start to have you put what you want to recommend the city to do. You know, either like, we think you should do this, stay away from that, stuff like that. But there's a couple ways to define better. Is it just somehow a better location, or is it, is it a more cost-effective thing? Like what are the things that would make an alternative location potentially more appropriate than expanding in place here? So I promised you all that any issues you raise, that every last one of them get addressed, and that's really kind of our last issue that we have not resolved or discussed yet. So I'm not sure who's starting off on talking about alternative locations, if that's Nick or if that's Sherry or somebody else from the city. But I will say this, in communicating with the city about this idea, they absolutely have looked at other properties and things like that. And so I'll let them explain that a little bit more detail and
sure.
And why I think you're going to understand why they feel that what they're doing with the expansion here is the most appropriate. And I think their reasons match up with some of the goals and the priorities that you mentioned too, some of the values and wants versus needs and stuff like that. So,
sure. I think one of the biggest things that we noticed when we studied this early on was just the cost difference. So thinking about infrastructure that has to be put in place, the site that has to be built for a parking lot, secure parking, all those things really do add up. And we'll show you this here in a little bit when we start talking about cost of a facility. Just thinking about construction costs and site cost, and I know, Sherry, you've got some other costs in terms of land costs, but it's about a $4 to $5 million difference between a new construction at a different site than it would be for this renovation addition. So that alone is a pretty big focus, I think, and a good idea is to go ahead and do this addition remodel without having to spend all that extra for the new site.
Well, as Nick's saying, it's not just, they're just looking at the site costs, the building cost, the parking lot costs, and so forth. So as a city, we started thinking about where do we already own land that would make it cost effective to have the extra increase for the new building. Relatively, the main land property that we would have that would have the expanse enough that we could put this on is out by our animal shelter. And we don't find that very feasible just because of where it's located. If you want to think about the comments you said, somebody wanted to come in and make a report or the issues we currently have, imagine that poor person having to drive all the way out down South Liberty Parkway, down Arsenal and out to that facility. It's kind of on unapproved roadway. It's sufficient enough for the few visitors for animal shelters. But if we started having people wanting to actually go there on a regular basis, we just ruled that facility out. Then we started working and saying, well, what would be a good place to have a new facility at? And we figured that one of the best locations would probably be off of 291 as a main corridor, main access, main accessibility. So then it gets down into, so what sites are available along the corridor? The northern part, before you start coming, if you're coming down 291, before you start making the curve towards the triangle, there's a big lot that's owned by, it's actually Filbert Oil, who owns a big lot up there. And I don't know what they have intended with it, but It's it's a little over 5 acre site, almost 6. Backside's really heavily wooded. So that would provide a little bit of security that people wouldn't see what's on the backside of the police facility. But then we also started looking at what the price of the property, some of it's flatter at the top. We'd have minimal sewer across the frontage of the property because there's sewer already up to the property. But we'd have to carry it through, and then we'd have to do other site improvements. And we estimated that would cost another probably $4 million. And that's just assuming the price of the property for the usable part, not the whole 5.8 acres. So didn't want to get into that. We
And
also
that's before a building.
That's before the building.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just to buy the land and get the utilities and the other infrastructure that we would require anybody else to do.
Okay.
You know, we'd require sidewalks across the frontage of it, which is what we would require anybody who came and develop it. They'd have to do the same thing. So like I said, that was getting up to be about $4 million to do that site. So then we looked at other ones. There's a site that's in the triangle north of where the Hy-Vee gas station kind of is. There's a vacant lot between McBee's car wash and in that. We looked at that site. I don't know how secure we could make the site, but we can spend money, get fencing, we probably could. Whether that site would be more, the land would be even a little bit more per acre cost.
Is
A
it
lot of that site, and that site we looked at was probably just about 1.6 acres.
Oh, I didn't think it was big enough.
It'd be real tight. It would be kind of probably a little bit on the tighter side. Because we were just basing it on something that said that we needed 35,000 square feet.
Mhm.
Then we need parking and
The
others.
parking lot's a
The
big
parking
chunk.
lot would be a chunk of that. So it'd be real tight.
Yeah, tight is not, if you're gonna go off, jump off the cliff, you kind of want to have enough room so you don't have to rebuild this thing in 20 or 30 years. And now build a new one because we've outgrown the site again. So that would be.
And that's what the advantage of that other site further up on 291, the Filger oil site. You know, it definitely had expansion opportunities, but like I said, it's going to be the most acreage, so you're going to pay the most for the land. Everything else is a little bit tight. We looked and said, well, we know that Evergy that's across from City Park, again, would be prime corridor, prime access. We know Evergy is wanting to move across the street. And so this would be a potential to reclaim land that was, because, you know, if we build a flat building, we're not getting basements and stuff. So I don't want to worry about what cleanup sites that we might have to do. You know, I wouldn't anticipate a lot, but then we would also be in the whim of the schedule for when Evergy actually moves. So we looked at that site. We looked and considered, we know for the people familiar that the Freevert hardware stores up for
Freevert,
sale. And so we thought about looking at that site, and then we decided if security of our officers was important, if anybody could go into those residents above it, there's a retaining wall, and the sight line would be just perfect straight in. So we ruled that site off for security reasons. You know, so we looked at the property kind of there by Siva, and I don't know how much that would subdivide at where the old Siva site is off of Leonard. But that chunk of property right now is 35 acres. So then they would get into how would we subdivide that and so forth. And so we didn't even get into what the price. We were roughly at the low end, we feel, at pricing of the stuff at $13 a square foot. So whether that was, we were basing that on some of the appraised values of some of the right of way we bought for the 291 corridor price. And we feel that was a starting spot for what we were using for pricing. I feel that, you know, unless we had a willing seller, that's probably at the very low end price for square footage of property. So they're talking, you know, building cost is an additional 3 to 4 million. We'd be probably another 2 to 5 million on top of that, which is going to be 25% cost more, you know, probably in the range minimum 25% more to go to an off-site location. So
if I was counting, you had like 8 or 9 things that you actually looked at.
about 5 or 6.
5 or
Yeah.
6? How did I get 8 or 9?
I don't know.
It sounded like. a
You've
lot.
been in Alaska for a week? 'Cause
Yeah,
last 5
2
is
weeks.
9.
2 weeks, yeah.
No, I'm just saying, but we were just citing things,
Okay.
and some of them may or may not be willing sellers. The one that we know is up for sale, we ruled off, excuse me, we ruled off just for sightline issues, because there's a
Okay.
retaining wall on the backside and there's houses.
Some that were just
higher.
real quick non-starters.
Pretty
Just-
much.
yeah,
I mean,
okay.
we just looked at sites that were, a little over an acre minimum. It'd be tight, but we started with that, and then we also were trying to figure out what some of the ancillary costs were for security.
Okay.
So to sum it up, the only site that you really found that would be big enough was out by the animal control site, but that wasn't feasible because of getting there and the
Getting
location.
there
of
and the
it.
location and whether anybody who developed in that area, eventually we'd start making them do street improvements, so. And we didn't even add that cost. Like I said, I don't know what the goal for Filger Oil is, but that would have probably been maybe potentially one of the easiest sites that would have this ability for expansion.
Oil people want oil money.
They're a little bit.
I don't know what they're doing on that site. When you look at it aerially, they're doing something with it. I don't know. Maybe there's dump dirt on it.
That's
I
the
don't
one
know.
next to the antique, the old antique store.
Yes. Just
So is there other question, Doc?
Well, no,
Comments, questions about
the only
alternative?
comment was to hope that you've got all this stuff, data, so that they can put it in a report as places that we looked at that
We
we
can do
could
that.
do. And I would just add one thing, everybody I ask about downtown or someplace else, without a specific, on someplace else, everybody to the person said, it needs to stay downtown.
Safety is the heart of the city.
And then-
We want it.
And that had nothing to do with money. They thought it belonged downtown. It's close to the court. It's close to where people want to have cops walking the streets, basically. I mean, that comment was made, which is a policy issue. It's not a building issue. But it's, it's one of the comments I got from people.
Personally, I don't like the spot down by the animal control. I think it's too far south. Our growth is going north. I don't see that as an option.
Yeah, we ruled that off pretty quick
Yeah.
for not really being feasible. And we just, I've heard you guys talk about say the person who's handling a family dispute that wants to come talk to the officers. And where some of the comments were right now is they don't have a friendly environment to come in. I can't imagine trying to go all the way out there and feeling comfortable making that report. But that's my opinion, so I didn't want to interject that.
It's okay. We like your opinion.
Well, I'm staff advisory, I'm not,
That's all
I'm
right.
not here to sway your guys' thoughts.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, Sherry, thank you for that rundown. That's extremely helpful. And I think, Bill, I think you've, seriously properly assessed that this will be a question that others in the community are going to ask.
I think that why I was so insistent on having this conversation was so that when we do make a recommendation, we can say, yes, we did look at there were other options put on the table, and the group looked at them, and this was the group opinion that whatever it is, was what we're gonna do. But that it was addressed by the city, it was addressed by the committee, that we actually did that. And I think that's important to the people that will come around and ask you, rather than, oh, you just said what they wanted to do, you didn't do anything about it, so.
Right.
That's right.
I do have one question. I know with the community center, the vote that was taken earlier, part of that land was going to be donated. As part of that, has anybody approached the potential donor to see if they'd be interested in donating that property as part of the conversation?
We had not.
I don't even know how big the property is.
Do you know who owns it?
I don't.
I believe John Davis.
And Yates.
Yeah.
John Davis, and I can't think what Yates' first name is.
That would take care
You know
of
who John Davis
property
is?
costs at least.
I know you know who that is.
You think?
I think you better.
All right. Sherry's writing stuff down. Okay, well, if we're ready to move on, then we just want to take another look. I don't know if there's been any more tweaks since your feedback and looking at things, and perhaps this, Pay for Welker's done some follow-up with the city, but let's just maybe do one more over the world. I think we can get through that fairly quickly. You've all had a chance to see it. I got stuff out to the folks that missed that meeting. In fact, Nick took the time to, actually walk the two individuals that weren't able to make that meeting. So they had a chance to ask the same questions you did, see everything you did, especially the very sensitive nature of those floor plans. So, which I doubt we're gonna show on the main screen.
Okay. We're gonna show it to this group, but not to the world.
Which document are you ready for?
It's called Design and Images, I think.
There's only like 3 or 4 right in the beginning, then we can bring the world into it.
Right.
Okay. So you don't want them to see it?
Yeah.
First 3 or 4 slides.
Similar to last time, we don't want to show the floor plans,
The exterior
over the
stuff's
web,
okay.
but.
We're gonna sell it out on the open market.
We're doing a bit of juggling. This one?
Yeah, we'll open that one first and we'll screen share out. We have the 5th or 6th slide of that package.
Cool. So I will just download it here, and then when you're ready to share, I have it
Awesome.
on mine.
Get those floor plans off of there?
Those are the old plans. That's all right.
Oh, those
So
exist.
we're gonna have this
Yeah.
for this room for now, Steve, and then we're gonna share. when
Oh,
we
so
get to
we're
that.
blocked okay.
Yeah.
And they've got audio in the meantime?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep, so there you go.
I think you need to go to a presentation mode or you're gonna be changing every slide.
Oh,
Well, she's in a PDF viewer. She's not in.
Yeah, that's okay. I think you can still go to presentation mode.
in the browser, I can open it as
Yeah,
a,
it's not in.
Because some of them are rotated the other way, you know what I mean? It's just,
what's that? Better?
can you go to presentation now? Maybe in the gear on the right?
Not familiar with it. I don't think you can unless it's a PowerPoint or it's in Bluebeam.
Yeah, somebody showed me how to do it
Adobe.
last week.
In Adobe, you can.
What do you want to do? Rotate it?
Let's just try to work with this if we can.
Alright.
We want to start with,
Right in the very beginning, is that the first one?
This
This is just a little bit of a recap. So we've got about a 15,000 square foot existing floor plate on the ground level. That orange area that you see there is about 5,000 square feet. It is kind of a shared area right now. Actually, the police are, you should remember, they have their workout room. There's a whole bunch of storage. It's kind of dusty, not a great environment to be working out in. And then the yellow part is what they're in now. So they can have all that space. And then we just showed a blue box of about another 6,000 square feet, kind of hanging out to the right. If we built to the face of the building and went all the way over to the sidewalk by the county property, and still that wasn't quite enough to make the program fit. So at that point, we determined we needed to expand into the street. On the upper floor, same kind of thing. There's a wing that sticks out for the police, but they only occupy a couple thousand square feet out of that 5,000 square foot ring, because the courts are using that and other people are using the rest of that building. So again, not enough space to go without expanding into the street. And this just kind of shows some diagrams. The one on the right is the one that goes to the property line. And the one on the left is the one we kind of need. We kind of need to get the building expansion to go out that way. And the city was receptive to closing down that street anyway for a variety of reasons. I think the folks that are in the courthouse, the judges and the staff would like to have a more of a secure entrance if they build this parking garage and this block right to the next. So that street would want to be closed anyway. And so we're going to take a look at that. And then here's kind of how the floor plan's laid out. You can see that upper right-hand corner, the plans have rotated a little bit. So the upper right-hand corner was that orange box that was shared where all the workout equipment was and the storage, and city's moving some IT equipment down there. And that's going to be a great storage room. You can kind of see what we've done on the right is build a new entranceway coming in from the right side of the building, and that's going to lay up right against the edge of the building there. One of the thoughts is the police really don't have much of an entry or much of an identity to the public. It's kind of like they're around back behind the building in the single story, but the city hall's got this 3-story atrium. So this is really going to help them to be identifiable in terms of what's going on there. So the public will come in that side. The police will come in down on the bottom side. of the building. And they'll come into a nice break room. The patrol function is all happening there in the blue boxes. You've got all the sergeants that manage the patrol group. Straight ahead in the big blue box is their roll call room where they use that. And then there's offices to support that right around there, report writing stations, things like that. Resource areas for the patrol officers are right in that area. Very convenient. Up to the upper right, the building does kind of sprawl a little bit, but up to the upper right are all the men's and women's locker rooms. And then as we laid this out, there was actually a space on the right-hand side, which is a big blue box, which we're calling consolidated storage. But because of how the whole building worked out and what went there, that's kind of a leftover space that we'll spend a little bit of money on just to enclose it, but it can be used by multiple departments. Right now, we're showing it just for the police. Keep that in mind. The existing Sally Port that we're walking that they drive into, we're turning that into their gym and their workout area. With the mechanical room just to the right of it. We're actually looking at upgrading the mechanical system. A lot of the equipment is original, and we can make some not only energy improvements, but some improvements in distribution of air without a lot of extra work there. If you take a look at the core on the left, just left of the workout room, that's the existing stair and elevator. So the city hall staff still need to be able to come down there and get into that workout room if they've got a card, a key card or the right badge to get in there. But the rest of the people will be kept out, and the public can still come into this nice new front entry to the police station and go right up the elevator into City Hall. So we're actually improving that condition, but we're using that stair and elevator as the vertical element so we don't have to build another elevator inside the police station 40 feet away. You know what I mean? So we're trying to utilize those existing things. If we take a look at that blue box right by the public entry, that's the records unit. And they'll act as a receptionist. So when you come in, at least 8 to 5, there will be someone sitting there, and that will be a good thing. If not, there'll be a phone to call from the vestibule and that kind of stuff. And then kind of rounding it out on the left-hand side of the building, there's a 3-bay Sally Port. And that's for if they're booking people, if they need to do anything with their vehicles or anything like that. There's also a crime scene bay there. So if they have a car they're processing and things, they can secure it off. It's got to be treated just like any other property. You can't have a lot of people randomly walking through. So there'll be a curtain that we pull across there. It's basically a chain link fence that keeps people out. Their SWAT group will work out in the back with that big orange box that's sitting there, and their weapons depot and stuff will be in this area. The big gray box above it is their new booking area. And it's a tremendous improvement. You can see, I think they got about 4 or 5 cells back there that are kind of stuff. In order to do it right, we're looking at about 10 or 12 rooms. And it's going to meet all the not only the requirements that they have in Missouri today, but also some that are coming that we see in other parts of the country, which are just normal. Like they need to have a separation of men, women, and juveniles. That's a sight and sound thing for them. So this works really well. And then the blue box right to the right of it, of the jail, is their new property room. So they won't be bringing property. They'll come right out of the Sally Port. They'll put it right in there. They won't be carrying nasty carcinogens and drug content and stuff into their office spaces anymore and processing it there. They'll be able to process it right here, package it, send it through in some pass-through lockers to the property clerk, and they can get it back anytime they want to. So that's kind of the first floor.
This is very similar to what you guys saw last time we met. That was hand drawn.
It
This
is.
is obviously been put in the computer and
A lot more accurate
A lot
now.
more accurate.
Things do work, yeah. Then the upper floor, of course, the floors don't register. So there's a big hole in the floor right in the center of the building, right where the entry in. That creates a nice 2-story space, but it also, we're able to put I'm calling it a grand stair. It'll be a utilitarian stair, but we make it a little bit wider. We've done this in other facilities, and you'd be amazed how many people, it's so easy to use that stairs. People just use a lot if it's right there and it's convenient. But that will allow us to have some kind of railing around that hole in the floor and let all that natural light come into that 2-story space and bleed all the way back into all that interior office space that's in there. You can see they've got enough offices with investigations in the upper left-hand corner and administration and some specialty departments in the main area. They also got a right to the right is an interview suite that links to not only to the city hall, to the main level, but it also kind of links to the inner part of the building. And then they've got a big training room, and that can be used double up as a community room. So the community will be able to come in right out of the city hall, upper floor, second floor. They'll be able to come right in there, or they'll be able to come up from the lower level. And we still have a little bit of work to do with the restrooms. We're not really happy with how clunky and how much space they're taking up, but there will be some extra restrooms there so they can be used, because there's only a couple single hole restrooms on that level for that. And that's kind of, you can see we've left a lot of that box still for the city, and that doesn't hurt anybody, you know, we probably only used about 25% of the space that they were already allocated up there. Yeah, it's that big area there, and quite frankly, if the court staff need to expand, or is there anything else that has to happen, what a great place to have the extra space is right in that area. So we might have been able to find a way just to use it, but it didn't function very well. And why not just give it back?
So about how much are you giving back to the city hall and out of that? How many square feet?
1,500. You had it up here, Candace. Yeah, it's about that. What is that number? 2,500. We're using some of it. I guess about 1,500 square feet. It's not huge, but you know, you can get quite a few people in 1,500 square feet.
Get some more growth than they got now.
You bet it does.
Well, and getting the workout room out of this back area here, you know, that the city hall and PD are currently using, opens up all the middle of that space to be whatever the city needs it for in terms of storage down there or whatnot. And that means, you know, city staff share this exercise room. So there's also space in here that's been given back.
That's a great, we were planning on using about 500 square feet out of there for their general storage, but now we've got a storage room that links right to the police side of it, and that we've given that space back. So
I'm not sure how to ask this question. This is the second floor that we're on.
Mhm.
And there's a third floor where there's offices are up on the third floor.
yes, but it's only in the triangular part on the right.
Well, with the addition, will it be built such that if the third floor ever needed to be expanded, that it could carry the weight of that structure being expanded onto the third floor over the second floor that we're building now?
Right now, we haven't considered that because of the initial cost, but also the police don't want to be up on the third floor. If push comes to shove, they don't want to put people up there because
I'm
the city
thinking about
hall
the
staff
city
can
needing
be.
the expansion as much as I am the police.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the time to do that would be now as opposed to trying to do it some other time.
Well, essentially, you'd be retrofitting this existing second floor roof structure to be able to support, you know, additional folks. We're matching the floor to floors right now, so that the second floor, you can walk from second floor to the new second floor. But we are going to try to maximize some of that plenum space above that police PD second floor. So the roof of the police station will be slightly taller than the roof of the second floor of City Hall.
Okay.
And so we could pull it back down, but I think again, that's gonna hurt the possibilities that we're gonna have for the PD second floor and the new rooftop unit that we're gonna serve for the mechanical system. We're gonna want more of that plenum space in the new building. So I don't think we'd wanna add a third floor to the PD building. And I think it'd be very challenging to add a third floor on the other side of the atrium for City Hall.
I think it'd be almost impossible.
Yeah, they'd have to rebuild a whole new roof structure to do that. And I don't know.
Were you just, Robert, were you just talking about putting a third floor on the new addition or on the whole
Yeah.
second floor of the building?
Well, we're only gonna have 2 floors on the new addition, but there's a third floor that's on this existing building.
Mm-hmm.
So if they ever needed to expand into that same space going south with the foundation and the structure and the footings, you know, handle that third floor. If in fact they wanted to expand and stay here as opposed to buy a property someplace else in town. Yeah, throw it out as a thought. I mean, I've owned a building that used to have a third floor on it, then that building burned, but they kept the structure. And when I sold the building, the fact that they could build a third floor onto it added value to what I sold it for.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to study this southwest side of City Hall, if that would even be possible on this
I think he
side.
was talking about just where we're doing the addition.
Yeah, yeah.
On the old building, because we know existing City Hall came down to another floor.
Right.
We can't even attach our columns to those columns on the outside of the building, so.
Well, currently, we don't have a way to get from the third floor to the City Hall's third floor because it stops at that atrium.
Yeah, the atrium divides.
You'd have to make a bridge over that atrium to get to the new third floor of the addition.
Yeah, somehow,
So I think that would be challenging as well.
unless the police were using it, and that's why I went there.
Yeah, the police don't want to be on the third
That's
floor.
not an efficient layout for them. Why don't we study it? We can take a look at it.
Just ask a question.
Sure, sure.
So, another question or point that you all had, and I guess let's just kind of review that. Current police staff, officers and staff is how many?
Commission personnel.
Overall staff.
Yeah.
54 to 76, I think was the number.
That's current, 76?
going, no, I thought that was what the plan was.
For future plans.
Yeah.
Right. So the question, and you already saw how they're kind of bursting at the seams with what they have now. So back to, I guess you all want them to build something that's ready for the future. So what do you estimate these, between these two floors, what size of a staff? And I mean, and that may mean you even alter what you've got today, but maybe as we're seeing it, how many staff can that accommodate?
Well, we've got it designed in place for 70, about 76 people, almost 80 people. And that looks at about a 20-year growth for this, 20 to 30-year growth. Now, the difficult thing is that Independence hasn't had much growth. Liberty, excuse me. Thanks, brother.
Oh, man, you started the fight,
Yeah,
Ken.
sorry.
I got you.
Liberty hasn't shown almost no growth over the last 15 years or so. It's almost dead. And there's nothing that really projects that it's going to grow. We don't want to stick our head in the sand and say the city's not growing, which is kind of where your third floor comment came from. It will grow. It will continue to evolve. And we do have extra space around the locker rooms back there because when we add staff, a lot of those staff want to be patrol officers. And the patrol officers really need report writing stations, which is going to be fine. This establish the chassis that they've got. They just need to have a locker so they can get the people in there. And I think that would be really the only expansion. And quite frankly, we've got that big blue box sitting right next to the locker rooms. It's not perfect, but it certainly could be an expansion, some expansion capability right there. So this thing, depending on what happens with population, it might take 50 years to get to the numbers, quite frankly, that we projected for the staff
And I
here.
think we're actually showing more lockers here than are needed day one.
Yeah.
So the city might choose not to purchase all those lockers, but they know 10 years from now, we can buy lockers to fill this spot, and we have the locker room already built for it. You just buy the lockers later.
Yeah. Make sure that the toilets and the showers the chassis is big enough to handle a larger
Right.
number.
And then I know, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
What is the ratio between men and women lockers?
Right now, it's about a 2/3, 1/3.
2/3 men, 1/3 women?
Exactly. And it's, how many women staff do you think you have compared to men? Do you know that off the top of your head? Including civilian?
Well, including civilian, well, we don't have communications here
Yeah.
or another place. Give me my turn to some numbers in my head.
Okay.
So,
That's okay. I was just wondering, a comment from somebody wanted to make sure that we had men and women locker rooms adequate for the women.
And you can see that we have 2 showers for the women and 3 for the men. So there's still plenty of facilities within the locker room as well for everybody's use. And the thought is that civilian staff, so if there are maybe records clerks that are female or whatnot, anybody working in the facility could go use that locker room and use the workout room as well, even if they're not a sworn officer. So we've taken that day.
Yeah,
out
they're
as
on the
well.
PD staff.
Yeah, the PD staff.
And then I think one of the things that, Bill, back to your kind of point or question about City Hall expansion. I know Sherry explained to us last week that they don't necessarily anticipate needing more space. They're going to get some from this, whether they need it at any time soon or not. And then she talked about the fact that you've got kind of a mix of people that are remote or hybrid workers and things like that. So you're just not, I guess, city's not losing any sleep at night over the size of the City Hall administration side. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, right now, the approved staffing for on-site is around 60. And I think you guys are designing it for maybe getting up to even to 100.
Yeah, so the police have been pretty good for now. I think the biggest concern we had doing the addition on here is, can we make it work? Will it function, or are we just spending a whole bunch of money and they're gonna have to add more officers just because their process became inefficient? But I think it improved efficiency, and I am really happy with the solution that came out. You know what I mean? It was a group effort to get where we got, but it's a pretty exciting thing. And I think the biggest issue is that their police are gonna have an identity, even though they are downtown. It's kind of hard to find them. I would guess that most of the people that are looking for the police end up coming into City Hall upstairs and have to go down because they're required to put the seats for the building on both ends of the property. So that's gonna be a big change for them, and it's gonna be a big change, quite frankly, for downtown too.
Okay, any more questions, comments on the interior?
Then we can go live stream.
Yeah, go live, all right, then we'll go back live stream and look at the exterior shots. again.
Actually, real quick, one question, Nick, and just small thing. Last meeting, you had mentioned you guys were looking at that conference room as being kind of the only private meeting space. You had mentioned you were looking at kind of how to restructure that to provide a little bit more privacy. I think that was on the
Oh, this conference
That one,
room
yeah,
here,
yeah.
maybe?
yeah.
Yes, we're still studying that. We're gonna
Okay.
probably tweak that some more. Looks like that's where we landed as of right now, but and we'll talk to PD about that. We have a meeting actually, I think, on Wednesday, so kind of, that's a good thought. We'll make sure we take a look at that.
Well, actually, before we move on, Captain, what do you think? I mean, I guess you're the end user here, or do you think this is going in the right direction for the department?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like talk about the locker rooms. We wouldn't need all those lockers right away, so we could expand further. We think there's plenty of ratio between men and women growth in there. The private space for the supervisors is there as well. Each one has their own workstation. They're sharing one large room, but typically there's only one or two here at a time. Going to another private conference room is nice to be able to do so. Yeah, it's not right there off theirs, but I think it's just one office over. So I think it's workable, and coming in through the Sally Porch straight up to the jail is a good use of space. Inside the jail, there's plenty of room for putting people in where we need to be and do it safely.
You need 3 Sally Ports now? I mean, now we only have 1, increase to 3. Is that
It would be a huge help. If we have a car in there that's evidence, we cannot use the Sally Port for anything because we've got to maintain chain of custody of that evidence. So by being able to block off one of those Sally Ports for evidence, frees up the other 2 spots for officers to bring an arrest and safely bring them inside.
Bill, the thought is that the green line, you'd have a chain link fence that's actually rolling chain link fence. So you close that whole thing off, and they can have a vehicle in there for a month if they needed to, and still have 2 active Sally Ports.
okay?
Makes sense.
Okay. All right, then let's go live and go outside.
So what was that little plan? Something that's
It's,
really small. Can you
Zoom
zoom
in
in?
the site plan, I think.
That's what I was kind of.
Do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share it from here and I can control it? I don't have a preference.
However, whatever, I don't care.
Okay, we'll just minimize there and
Okay.
then.
I know there's a presentation mode on Adobe because I did it when I presented to you guys, and we just clicked in the mode, then every slide came up with the right
If you want to
scale.
look for it.
I just,
Probably
I don't use Adobe, we use Bluebeam.
these arrows over here on the right-hand side next to the gear.
This one,
Just hit that.
Yeah.
Oh, there. That's
There
what
you
I'm
go.
talking about. Jeez, old Pete.
middle school principal knows what's up.
Yeah.
I've done that a couple of times.
We got the right people teaching our
Just
kids.
click the right button and it works.
And then how do I screen share this?
I'm already sharing mine.
Awesome. Okay, good. So you can see at the top of the page, top up is north. And the diagonal kind of bar going through the page is a clear story that goes through the center of City Hall. That 3rd floor is that triangular piece above that. And then, of course, our addition is on the bottom left-hand corner. You can see it's an L-shaped addition that comes right to the left. And that rectangular bar that pops up right there on the right side, that's kind of a clear story that lets where that floors don't align, and there's that nice officer entry down in there. But some things that happened here, of course, because we closed the street off now, we of course have a great public plaza. I can't wait to show you all that, how that's turned out. But that's nice, something that will be good for the city forever. And, quite frankly, this city likes these downtown venues. So I think it's going to be real successful. We are thinking there's going to be a 3 to 4 story parking garage right to the right of our property right in there. So,
Separate project down the road.
Separate project down the road, but the police secure parking will be in the lower level of that and will be part of the development. But just to the left of there, between that garage and our building, we also have another courtyard. And quite frankly, trying to find an exterior space for police in an urban setting is very difficult. It almost always becomes a roof deck of some time at 10 times the cost. And now we're just basically putting some turf down there or however we program that, so that they'll have a nice outside space. Of course, they're concerned about security with the parking garage to the right of it. But the thought is on that garage, that it pretty much needs to be a solid wall there that goes 8 or 10 feet above the topmost level. And I think that's going to be really good. It's going to give them some nice security and allow them to come out of the garage and have covered access right into the building and into the Sally Port. So that will be really good. There's your existing building with the blue boxes. And you can kind of see how big the box is. Now, we don't need to bulge all the way across the street, but we're significantly in it. And we know we have to work on utilities if we're going through there. And then the smaller box, some kind of entry piece on there we thought would be kind of good. On the bottom left-hand corner, you can see kind of a glassy thing. That's the elevator stair tower for the garage in the future. So you can kind of see where it is. We studied in blue box form. We just basic massing to try to figure out what do we even want to try to do here. So we start off very schematic in nature. You can see these different things and some worked or not. Then we get to what we call the white box models, where we're really starting to think what's glassy and what's more solid and how do we make that work. And we probably had a dozen of these. Oops.
Sorry, I was testing the lives.
And then, of course, we layer it up, still in white box mode, but we're still looking at potential for signage, entries, the courtyard plazas are coming in there. This one has a nice, maybe an officer memorial with a flag plaza back in the back of it with some nice trees. But you can see that that's that whole intersection of the block that actually takes up all the sidewalks and the parking and everything. And it's a pretty good sized space. You could have a Christmas tree lighting or something like that. I mean, it'd just be a prime spot for it to happen. And you can kind of see as we're going down the side, we started to add windows to the buildings and things. And we've torn the parking garage out of the way so you can kind of see everything. But you can see what those courtyards look like both inside this secure space and outside. And there's kind of some kind of black fence things on both sides. You know, we don't know exactly what that is. We've kind of created a price to have some money in for that, but we'll go into detail on that. I don't think you want to really be able to see through it. But it needs to be tall enough that you don't, you're not hearing words and stuff over the top. And then you can see it from this angle, again, a white box. And the reason we do this, quite frankly, is because in order to see a nice design and understand the form, if you start putting materials on there, someone might gravitate to the red brick that they like, and the building might be the complete wrong solution. So we do it like this so that everybody builds consensus around where we're going. And then we put materials on it. And the thought here is there's no way we're going to be able to match the brick of the existing building. Even if we could find it, it's coming out of different clay stock, so it's going to be a slightly different tint. And this thing's weathered for years. We can't get that kind of weathering on brick. So we think some kind of complementary, and that's kind of what you guys said before, some kind of complementary brick would be good. We like some of the cast stone tan bands through it, because when the city hall did their renovation, they had some cast stone and stuff that was put on the building. So it looks like we're upgrading at the same time and the same way, quite frankly, that city hall did. So you can see this is what it looks like. Same three views. This is one from the side. And then there's the one from the edge. You can see we're down in the bottom left-hand corner. We've got to walk up 5 or 6 steps because our building's growing out of the ground. The site's dropping off about 5 feet there from the corner of the site. We're just going to handle it this way. We've got a code required exit, and that's going to have to go in there next to that sidewalk to the county building. And then there's the entry, and you can see it's pretty easy to see where the police station is now, and it's a little bit more grand, a little bit more respectful of the officers, and it's just a nice solution for them. Again, the courtyard inside there, brick wall on the left's the parking garage.
So that's going to be a solid wall?
Ideally, it won't be solid right at the bottom because they'll need the police wall coming out of there, but most of that will be solid for a period of about 80 to 100 feet there.
Okay.
Just where the garage is. So that way we don't have people looking down onto the.
That's why I was wondering about.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there it is with the garage kind of pulled away.
And that's a view, honestly, until the garage is built that we're going to have. And so we'll study that with the PD and the city to determine where the secure fence goes day one, if they want secure parking and kind of what it looks like. But that's what you'd have until you build a parking garage. But we do think we would do some of these plaza upgrades and a lot of the site, early on, and then come back later and build the garage.
Just out of curiosity, that you expect the officers to walk in under the awning above the Sallyport entrance and then go into and then make a right, and then go into their break room? Or do you
If
want them
it's-
to walk
if-
straight across to that spot where there isn't an awning above it?
Yeah, there's a sidewalk there, so if it's not pouring rain, they'll just walk straight in.
Yeah.
But the idea is we could build another canopy to go across there. It cuts into the daylight and stuff that comes into that
Yeah.
courtyard, so they thought if it's pouring rain, let us walk under the canopy by the Sally Port and take a right and walk in there. It's
But
very,
I think there was a comment last time we met about the security of the officers when they walk across was one of the things that the awning would provide. So I guess if a person wanted that, they could do that.
if they
And if they
could.
chose otherwise, they could walk.
And the solid wall on the garage is gonna help too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, that matters.
I think somebody had mentioned too, like if they're having some kind of an outdoor function, it starts raining, at least they can get a little bit of
Oh,
cover,
yeah.
not necessarily running right back into the building.
I don't know. Oh, that's what
Is
was up.
that, Ken, is that it? Is that
I
all the-
don't know if.
I'm just kind of clicking
Oh,
now.
back. Okay, there's a shot down the whole spine, kind of the campus. You can see that big wall in the parking garage on the left side, see where our building is. I thought this was a nice image that just kind of showed the magnitude of what those plazas are and things, and
And I thought maybe in the future, the addition of parking garage, there might be a mixed use building that a developer might build or something here in the left. That's what that I think is showing.
What's the plan for utilities in the outdoor spaces? Is it gonna be electric power?
Yeah, we
For
sure,
example.
we sure could.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about a band right there in the middle of that green square.
Mhm.
You know, doing a
Could really
concert,
be.
towards Corner Bar and up Missouri Avenue. No, I'm serious.
Is
Yeah.
that where you're
I mean,
gonna play?
Well, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars made in downtown Columbia by doing concerts, by
Okay.
blocking off streets.
Well, there's that nice patio just to the northwest there, and so you'll have that
Yeah.
civic public space that is really unique for opportunities like that.
One of the best burgers at Liberty's across the street there too.
It was a good burger.
It was awesome.
The burn ends aren't bad either.
Burnetts are good too, so.
One of the things that came out at the last meeting, I don't remember who asked, somebody asked you about solar panels on top of the building.
Yeah.
Had you all included that into the specs, if that was gonna happen?
We've got some costs for that. I think the intention of they'd be roof mounted potentially on
That's what I
the
meant.
south side, yeah.
We're limited, Evergy limits us on how big the solar field could be because they don't want you to be a solar producer that starts to serve the neighborhood. But we've got a giant building here.
We don't care. whatever.
Yeah,
I know, but they
They dictate,
unfortunately, they
if they
dictate.
provide you with power, they also dictate how big your solar field can be.
Oh, my goodness.
So we can get up to about 100 kilowatts or 150 kilowatts, and that's about as max as we can go. But I think we can get a third of the building, I think, on solar power. If the city chooses to go that way out, there's room for that, I think, on that south side there and wrap it around.
You've done some sort of discounted payback analysis of all the solar?
Yeah, we showed,
We gotta sell that for people.
sure.
You know, there's a real unique thing going on in Missouri and quite a few of the states right now that for solar, the federal government will provide cash back to government entities that don't pay taxes, tax free, because they can't take a tax reduction if they put a solar field on, but you can get a 20 to 30% rebate. You have to fund it first, put in the 100 KW thing, spend $800,000, but then get $250,000 back from the
Right,
government
right.
in the form of a check. And that's going on right now.
Yeah, we better build them quick.
Real quick.
Like before January?
Before January 20, January.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
maybe that was inappropriate.
Any more images, any comments, questions,
I think we're, that should
suggestions?
be about it.
Well, I think, let's get our agenda back up. I think we're gonna head into costs next. I think. Let's take a look where we are here.
It's just in the next tab over in the PDF.
Oh, okay. Back where we were.
There we go. Okay, so now, this is the hard part. You gotta pay for this. So what we wanna do is learn a little bit more about cost estimates, and I'm sure it sounds like they can give you line items on the solar, maybe there's some other line item things. So I'll go ahead and let you start with costs, and then then we're gonna have the city share with us their thoughts about how this might be paid for.
Claire, where's that?
Yeah, I can share it.
Okay.
If you minimize that, you should be able to see it now. Go back to the Google. And then the tab with the meeting, one more over.
More to the left. There you
There you
go.
go.
Got it. And is there a way to blow that up to
Yeah.
full screen mode? That's so weird. The image is so small in
Can't read
the
it.
big giant TV.
Yeah.
Should I open it as well, Claire,
Yeah.
for the room, for the room?
Probably.
I don't see that.
Again.
That's better.
You are good. Okay, so this cost analysis we've done does not include the full build out of those nice plazas out there. We kind of know what those things cost, so if we want to try to incorporate that in there. But it does incorporate a lot of things. As we go through here, we don't have any money for fencing, but we have some money for some other things that come in phase one that I feel are almost a swap out. So we're really close on where we're at here. We do this range estimate in-house. We do it in the programming phase before we even start designing to see if we got a project that seems reasonable. And we break it down into areas so that quite frankly, the city staff and the police staff can engage in this and understand where we're spending the money. So like, for instance, there's a storage shell, a basement shell. We don't have any basement space. We got some first floor space and at a certain rate, and a second floor space, a little bit more expensive to build on the second floor than it is the first floor. And that's just basically because you got a structural slab below you, not slab on grade. And quite frankly, if you're going to put a brick on the building, it has to be hoisted up a story in the air before they can put it on. And all those things cost money to do. So if we've got down here, we've got some other things. Enhanced shell premium are those spaces that are 2-story spaces, those clear story areas. The shell building costs more to do that. We're not taking off quantities of concrete and brick and things like that at this point, because, quite frankly, if we told you it was 8,000 yards of concrete, how would you analyze that? How would you assess that? But if we got square footage and everybody knows what's cost more, enhanced facade premium is where we put brick on things out on the facade of the buildings. We're doing durable materials. Roof screens are for the mechanical equipment. Deep foundations, we're going to have to drill piers for this building. The existing building's on piers, and this building will have them too. Quite frankly, that added quite a bit of money, and it still kind of shook out to going away from on a different project was still more expensive. So it shows it looks like the shell for the building is about $145 a square foot. It's a little bit skewed because that 35,000 square feet you see in the upper right-hand corner, about 10,000 of that or 10 to 12,000 is the existing building. So I'm spreading the square footage across the entire project. It is that way. You know what I mean? That's just the way we do it. Not to say that that's the best way, but just to be in all clarity. We do have a 10% design contingency, which we are not thinking is floating areas for areas that we haven't talked about in detail with the police. We're going in the very early phase. Tenant finish, as we come down through there's different grades of interiors. It's more expensive to build a big kitchen or a bathroom than it is an individual office. So we don't want to lump all the things in and say, it's about this much per square foot to build a police station. We try to break it down in ways so that everybody can understand how the money's to be spent. So we got about another $96 a square foot that goes into the interiors. And quite frankly, that is a good number. It's going across the every place we're building, the full 35,000 square feet, we're spending money on it. So then we broke out the mechanical systems, and we did some cost payback analysis with several different types of systems to look at. I believe the city is considering upgrading the mechanical system in the building. In addition, again, for the whole building and not just for the police and
It'll be 2 separate mechanical systems, but they'll be interconnected, and they do want to upgrade this building's mechanical systems for the long term.
So we got some money in there to do the existing building. We got some money to do the new building addition. in there. And then, of course, electrical, plumbing, that whole thing, all the way that everything breaks down. We do feel like we're gonna have to upgrade some of the services, the water service, the electrical service, and supplement them. So that's why you see a 0.5 over there on the left side as the units. But it's so because we didn't need quite the money to bring in a brand new service to the building. And then we got some contingencies down at the bottom, 6% escalation. This thing will have to go through a bond election next year, and it's gonna be probably the middle of the following year before we'll be halfway through construction. So it's about, we generally average about 4% a year. We had a year a few years ago where construction inflation was 20% in that 1 year. And I think it's okay now. It ended up being 10% the year after that. Now it's around 2 or 3% in this last couple of quarters. But so we're saying a year and a half is about 6% inflation. Regional contingency, because we do a lot of work in different areas, it doesn't apply here. We do have a supply chain contingency, and this is strictly to say, hey, we don't know what's going on in the world, but we've had in the past 6-7 years, we've had areas where the supply chain got jacked up and we had tremendous inflation. So let's not try to pad the numbers. Let's just say, here it is in there. And everybody can say, hey, that's enough contingency or not. And then we got the rock soil contingency down there at the bottom, just in case we do hit some soil or something bad. In addition to the deep foundations, we think that it's important to carry a little bit of a contingency there. So now we're up to about $424 a square foot on the right-hand side. Of course, part of that on the shells existing. And then we got site work. We don't have a lot of site work on here. So because we're using the parking lot across the street, we aren't doing any site work. I'm not showing any fencing and security gates, but I think that was a recommendation of yours. Let's make sure we secure the parking lot where the police park. And they agreed with that completely. And I had some other things that are on the list that we're going to take out of there. But you can see that 800 square foot plaza, about halfway down, is $12,000. You know, we've got 10 times that. You know what I mean? So it's a bigger number. And quite frankly, there's more amenities on some of these plazas. If we're talking about fans and amplified sound and things like that, we would program that space and before we designed it. So we just need to make sure that we got money if we want to try to do that, those plazas and that public space under this project, that we fund it right now. And then same contingencies down at the bottom, you know, the upright on the site. So it looks like we're about, you know, the left side, the 13.1 is the low end of the range, and the 17.7 is the high end of the range. And our target for the budget is right in the middle, 15.4 is the number. Now that's for construction. And I think we've got, just if we were going to do both those plazas and things, I think we'd probably add another $500,000, and we would have the images that we're showing you. We might not put the fences and stuff in there because there's nothing to fence off, you know what I mean? It's all wide open. The parking lot across the street's still there.
We're gonna have to restructure the parking lot anyways to get into the Sally Port. So there's an opportunity to fence a portion of the lot if the PD wants to until the garage is built.
And then we go on to the bottom, and we're looking at FF&E costs, furniture, lockers. They're able to use their existing lockers for their patrol, but the newer lockers, there's still a need to buy some additional security systems, audio-visual appliances, workout equipment, all those kind of things. A little bit of money for moving costs. It's mainly for property that has to be specially handled. But you can see that we got permit fees, testing and inspection, design fees, construction manager, pre-construction fees, and commissioning. You know, that puts about another $3 million into the project of things in order to completely finish. So we're looking at about 18.5, maybe 19 if we put those plazas in there would be a good number to use if we feel like we want to make that part of this project. It's going to be something. Let's put it there. And if we decided not to, we would design an interim step that would allow that plaza to be built in the future if everybody wanted to do it.
We feel pretty good about the 522 a square foot. Probably over the last decade or so, obviously that's changed quite a bit. We did a police station down in North Little Rock for about $300 a square foot just 4 or 5 years ago. But more recently, you know, we've seen the more $700, $800, $900 a square foot. You know, hospitals are $1,100, $1,200 a square foot. So I think the PD and the city have worked really well with us to design an economical building that still, you know, hits the mark and gets what they need for the long term. So I think it's a good design that's also economical when we're thinking about 522 for an all-in price for the facility.
Would you, I know you guys, would you kind of repeat what your track record is on your estimates? Like, which, like, how accurate are you on your estimates as far as when you actually build your projects out?
Yeah, you bet, Steve. That's a great thought. We've been very good on this until when COVID hit and we had supply chain issues. Not only were we missing the estimates, but all the construction managers they missed them all too. And even though they knew it was coming up, when the final bids came in, they still missed them. You know what I mean? It just, things were just happening so quick and so out of sequence. But until then, we had 100% accuracy in terms of our estimate. We've never had a project come in over budget. And now we're at 95% is what we say, just because we missed about 6 or 8 of them, during COVID that we prepared. So we know that. That's why we put some extra contingencies for supply chain in there, just to be upfront with everybody that they know that they got some money. But it's important to be accurate. We can't say, hey, this is an $80 million project. We know we can stand with that budget. Ching, we win again. These numbers are pretty accurate, and you know what I mean? They'll really allow us to manage and help in these early phases before we have drawings, help us to manage the client and the scope and what we're trying to do. So I would say that our accuracy is pretty high.
And that accuracy rate applies whether you're on the low end, high end, or in the target.
Yeah, we're in the range, and I'm really comparing with 18.5. That's the number that sticks in my mind. Now, we have challenged the city and we've challenged the police to say, look, there's a fork in the road that comes up on every decision. Sometimes we're going to have to turn right and spend a little bit more money to do it right. But if we can turn left and keep turning left on some things, we can help to control the deal on some of the things that we might have to bid as alternates, like that fence around the parking lot and things that doesn't get in there. We may have to, we can still accomplish that, unless, of course, we want to put the fence in, which I do think the fence is in this number, even though it said 0, because there's a couple things I know about that are in there that pretty much offset the numbers.
Is design fees, is that you guys?
That's us, yeah.
And our engineers and the rest of the team.
Yeah, our whole team.
Questions, comments?
So how does the city go out and get bids? You just say we're gonna build this, and then you let people sign
So
up
I
for it?
think the city hasn't decided in terms of the delivery method they want to use, but there's a couple different ways. Obviously, a traditional design bid build, so it'd be a hard bid, and you'd solicit a general contractor to hire a bunch of subcontractors, and the general contractors would submit their bids to build the station off a set of drawings that we prepare, next year sometime.
Right.
Or you could do what they call construction manager at risk delivery method, where they hire, and the state of Missouri started allowing to do that a couple of years ago. They hire a GC to come on board, and they compete on qualifications. So the city would ask the general contractors to come in and interview, and they would, out of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever the city wants to do, they interview them, and they would hire a general contractor. And then they still go out to bid for all those subcontractor scopes.
Probably 95% of the stuff is still competitively bid.
But it's all underneath that one GC that's already been hired. So the general contractor can share all the 3 masons bids, all the 3 painter bids, or whatever it might be, and the city can see those bids as well. And they put together what's called a guaranteed maximum price and submit to the city for approval.
The thing I like about the construction management on this one, because it's a renovation, and any renovation you do of this complexity is nasty. You know what I mean? There's going to be finding things. But they can help us strategize during the design phase and how we're going to tear the facade off the building, what needs to be torn off, how they're going to do it, how they're going to stage it, so we don't delay construction. All those decisions that we think we've made good, they'll not only reinforce that, but they'll also tell us, here's how we'd like to do it. And you've got your professional manager working as a proponent of the city now, helping to manage all the subcontractor work, which is 95% of what's going to be built. And you get them, and they're going to be good, and you won't have a project that takes 2 years when it was only supposed to take a year, to build.
And you still get those competitive bids. Again,
You still get all the
bidding all
bids.
those trades out.
You do. So that's a nice feature.
So while this building is taking place, where are the police house?
That is a great question. They
After
were
what do you
hoping,
think?
we didn't know how big your basement was.
So some cities, Gladstone, they moved into the strip mall there by North Kansas City, their early child care center there at Prospect and 64th Street.
Yeah.
So Gladstone kind of housed out of there and out some other places. So ideally they
Moved into their community center.
Grandview moved into their community center.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can find a temporary home if need be, and that really helps construction go much faster. You could always phase it, but that would take a lot longer.
But those costs aren't figured into the cost of the building, because if we spend 19 million to build this building, there's still some additional cost to find them a hole. I mean, like,
Depends if they have to rent.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, there might be some rental.
So there'd be additional fees.
Did you have moving costs in here, Ken?
I did, but not enough to carry rent. $15,000.
Yeah, so just
mainly
enough to
rent.
move, literally move stuff, not
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
rent costs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Gladstone, or well, obviously Grandview didn't pay anything because they just moved into their own building.
Well, even when we did, Miriam, they moved into the old community center around the corner and they kind of threw stuff in boxes and went. But it is, so they didn't have any rent, but they did have a little bit of moving there and then moving back. So that's a great question. And we presented this to them, over the last couple of months. I know you guys are looking for space, thinking about how you're gonna do it. Is there anything that comes to mind that,
We've looked at a couple buildings out inside on just some spaces that we know are open and vacant, and then I think we're reaching out to our economic development director, see if he can find some warehouse space for us as well.
would you have to rent it, do you think?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Bill, isn't that where you're going? Hey, we don't want to have a year of rent we've missed in our estimate.
Well, I just want to make sure that all the costs are identified.
Yeah.
Because it's not a cost actual of expansion, but it's an associated cost that could be pretty expensive for.
That might be the only thing that's not in this spreadsheet. I think everything else is pretty well covered, but that's a good thought.
So let's cover real quickly, kind of the city's idea of how, whatever that cost may be, we'll pick at this cost business a little bit more here before we get into you guys drafting recommendations, but I don't know if that Sarah or Sherry can share with us, like how the city envisions paying for this, whatever the price tag is.
Based on the numbers we're seeing, I think the most feasible avenue is a sales tax, and that would also be borne by everybody who shops here, not just borne on the shoulders of those who own property. So we think that would be the best option going forward.
Sales tax versus property tax.
Correct.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And is that like a sunset when this is paid for, or does it stay
It
in
will depend
place?
if there are other things that are combined with it.
Okay.
Aren't we almost at our maximum sales tax currently?
We are on public safety sales tax, we're maxed out there, but we do have another one that we might be able to tap up to, maybe a cent.
So do you know what that percentage would be?
It would depend at this point. We think that there's plenty of capacity to cover that. It's just if there's other things that we have to add on to it as well.
Sales tax. Surprised about that.
So what do you think? I mean, I know you talked about wants and needs and things like that. What's your sense of, is there anything extravagant in there? Is there something you think maybe they put off to later? What's your thoughts?
I'm looking at this as I'm building my own personal house. And when I'm building something for myself, I'd rather just bite the bullet and get it done. Of course, that's me. And, do it the right way. And you talked about possibly doing this while they're in the police station, while the staff is here. I'm thinking that's gonna take a lot longer to build. And again, my opinion is just to get it all done at once, all that construction done at once. Unfortunately, have them move out of the location to do that, I think would be feasible.
Yeah, there's some real possibilities that they might have to move out. They might not have the option.
Okay.
Because when we tear that wall off the outside face of the building,
Yes.
now we found a way that we could leave most of it in there, but boy, what a great Christmas present we give if they ever wanted to remodel again. They start tearing into walls and there's an old building inside it. That would just be, it's probably, we are spending about $100,000 to tear all those facades off, but boy, it's gonna leave you, now all of a sudden there's just a few columns along there. There's not a solid wall to try to get through. So, yeah, I would agree that it'd be better to get them out.
And along the lines of that is, you were saying we could optional the plaza, but I think a huge selling point is like that nice looking area and stuff like that, and just
I think you
build that into the.
I'm all in favor of doing that all at once because I think that facade outside is so attractive.
And it'll help sell the project.
I think so. I mean, just think of what what Robert said about all the stuff that we can do with that square.
You can
down
raise
there.
the rent on the commercial stuff in the next block they're gonna build.
Well, since Paymon and I are on the
anything you
HDLI
bring
board, I don't know.
I really don't see anything super extravagant. I mean, they've lived in some conditions that really are kind of unacceptable.
Yes.
And so, I think we're just really bringing them up to where they should be in the first place. I don't see anything that's, we're not putting gold pillars in, we're not doing anything. We're just meeting their basic needs of what a police department should have. And it costs money,
Right.
it does cost money to do that, but I think the long-term is super beneficial.
Do you think, and the captain left us here, do you think this is going to instill a civic pride in the city government and the police department and just what it looks like and adds to the aesthetics of the downtown? Do you think that's going to contribute to that?
I certainly think it will. What's a shame, I think if you get the naysayers, the people that don't like, if they could just come take a tour at the current, what it looks like.
Yeah, walk through.
'Cause I didn't know what it looked like. I had
No,
not.
we're creating a video virtual tour.
Right,
so
and that's what you
people
gotta
will
do,
be the next best
let them
thing. So
tour and
that's
say,
good.
how would you like to be in this condition? Or, even as a person on the other end, as somebody that's having to be held, how would you like to be held in that cell? We're not only improving it for the police, but we're also improving it to the people that they unfortunately have to bring in and process. They also are going to get some benefit from that. They may not like being in that situation, but it's going to be a way nicer setup. So yeah, as long as some people could see what it looks like versus what we're advocating for, that's.
Well, we'll have that video, and
Yeah.
once it's up, I'll share that link with everybody.
The shocker to me was when we walked in there and found out they took an old closet and turned it into a shower, individual shower, but it wasn't in the locker rooms. You had to come out of the men's or women's locker room and go out into the hallway and then go into that little shower room, which is literally the size of a closet, then get dressed in there, then come back out in the hall and go back to your locker. That was just odd. That was just.
So
that was not here.
one of the things I would ask Captain, I think you can weigh in on this. There is, recruiting and retention is a real issue for all the departments around here. What do you think effect this would have on recruiting and retention versus what they're dealing with now?
Yeah, you're not asking me, ask them.
The crew, yes.
Yeah, I think this is money well spent, because I think it will help with retention and recruitment.
And it's much needed. You talk about how long the police station has been here in this condition. It's over, 20 years that we haven't done
50 years.
anything? Is it how long?
50 years.
50 years and exactly. And we haven't done anything to it.
1980, right? So-
Well,
You know,
this
and
this
I-
adds to the security for our officers and safety.
45.
It is.
It'd be longer than that.
Yeah.
And the lifespan on this facility, you think?
That's the question.
Yeah, I think you've got a good durable facility here, especially if the city decides to upgrade the mechanical systems. They're original, the mechanical units themselves. We are actually looking at an upgrade to the system, which uses ice storage and things, which is going to be a huge cost reduction in energy costs too. That's just a benefit of this. But this thing, ideally, we're setting something that can be here 50, 60 years without a lot of tweaking. And then it just depends on how well they take care of the facility.
So not like it just starts crumbling in 60 years.
It doesn't.
It's just-
If they could do good
We're
maintenance,
all
there's
dead
no
by then
limit.
anyway.
Excuse you.
So is there any other costs or concerns, questions about this? It sounds like you want them to have the things that are outlined in this cost proposal, this cost estimate. Is that fair?
And the plaza.
I've seen a lot of
sounds
hits,
like that.
and the plaza.
Yeah, the plaza.
Add some dollars for the plaza.
Bill?
Yes, I firmly support it. My question is, one of the big points of it is that parking garage. That's a separate project that the feds are giving us $5 million for. Without that parking garage, where does that lead us as far as?
So it'd be this image essentially. And then to get up to this driveway here to get in the Sally Port, we're gonna have to redo this parking lot. So the striping's gonna change, the grading of this area is gonna change. And so we're gonna probably end up striping it the other direction. And the east-west direction, that is gonna be 2 or 3 bays. The furthest west bay, we could put a fence around it. Essentially, you'd have a secure lot next to the public lot, which isn't uncommon. You see that in a lot of police stations that we do. It's still, it's still secure in terms of people can't get in and out so that they feel safer. And we could add screening elements if we want to, put a screen on that fence. But I think you're still gonna get a very nice product even without the garage there. Day one, you actually have probably more daylight than in the buildings because the garage.
We might only be able to take 3/4 of the step to get it to the image when the garage comes in there. Now, you may have to defer something a little bit, but that's, we really haven't studied it in a lot of detail. But I think that's pretty easy to do.
And didn't they say this would be for like, take care of the police numbers for about 20 years?
Well, the 20-year growth is what we kind of threw onto this.
So 20 years,
But we-
$20 million, basically.
Well, yeah, but this could be 40 years too.
Yeah, that's true.
We just don't know how fast Liberty's gonna grow. No one's got that crystal ball. We do know that over the last 10 or 15 years, it's been pretty
Flat.
flat. Yeah, that's probably the best word for it.
But all of that was before South Liberty Drive was built and before all this land was added up north.
Yeah.
And the new developments are going on up there.
I
And
think
all it takes is one national housing company to come in here.
Sure.
And in 12 months, 18 months, we could have 150 new houses.
Sure, yeah. I think with Montage, you could do maybe a small substation up there, patrol station, maybe combine it with the fire station to serve the north side of
If it's
town
real
someday.
remote,
Yeah, 15 or 20 years from
I
now.
like that idea.
Instead of expanding this again, build a substation in a remote place where you need it. And that's kind of the model for
When it's
police
justified,
in bigger
yeah.
cities, yeah.
And that's part of the Montage plan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is
it's
it
part
right?
of
Is
their
it?
plan,
Okay.
but to have
Yeah.
that, they have, in their development plan, they have a fire station slash police station substation.
They're gonna build
They
it.
give them the land for that, right?
It's part of
Yeah.
their dedication of their overall master plan.
So let's move to the draft recommendations. Now, just like with the charter, I've just started something there, just so we're not starting with a blank piece of paper, because then we'll be here all night, right? There's zero pride of authorship here. This is gonna be your document. And when it's all final, we're gonna ask you to sign it and then present it to the council and the mayor. But let's just go ahead. I thought if somebody were to take this, rather than just getting at your recommendations, this kind of serves as a record of why you convened and what, kind of what your priorities and goals were. So it provides the frame in which you're making your recommendations.
So can you send this out to us?
I can. We're gonna try to wordsmith it tonight in real time before we have to get out of here. So, let's, this is.
So if we don't get through, that's what I'm
Yeah, I
trying
think
to.
we'll get through most of it tonight, I hope, and then, we'll send it back out, and then when we get together next time, we'll have like a formal signing ceremony, if you will, for this. But go ahead and give this a read, and then let Nick know when you got down to the priorities, and we'll scroll up so you can see the rest of it.
You can make it bigger in the bottom right if you want to, if that'd be helpful.
Better?
For some folks that.
We said the letters on the wall, he said, what wall?
Now, this 5 times is technically, this is including, you're gonna sign this on the 5th time.
The 5th time? I'm not sure what
The
that means.
next meeting.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna be in Vegas though, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to see my sister out there.
I'll be here though.
Yeah, Nick will
I'm
be
not going to
here.
Vegas.
Are we ready to scroll?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's go up, Nick, to the,
Goals.
and these are straight from your previous goals and priorities that you identified.
That last bullet point in goals, we didn't really have the.
We did talk about that in an earlier meeting, and would you just kind of give us, there were some kind of grants, but nothing that would actually like pay for like the meat of this project.
No, not unless we have like a community storm shelter or something. There's not really grants available, but
Was there like equipment grants or something for furniture or?
yeah, and then the energy efficient
Yeah, energy
upgrades. There's
grants. That's-
incentives from Evergy and others for
Why shouldn't that bullet just say, identify funding opportunities?
Yeah, it doesn't have to say grant.
Well, because you guys explicitly said grants.
Well,
You asked about
well,
grants.
well, then maybe we shouldn't be editing.
I mean, identify grant
Well,
and other
do
funding.
you want to, like, we've already put these goals out. I don't know if we want to pick at that. Let's pick it.
Okay,
I
well,
mean, let's maybe pick at the actual recommendations. How's that? And then maybe we say something about funding down there that's maybe different than what's up there.
You want to keep scrolling?
Yeah, I think, did you guys get through the priorities?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've had these things for a few weeks now. All right, so then here you go. And again, change anything you want, add what you want. But let's start taking a look. We're kind of building this thing out. So there's a list of items that you could have less recommendations, you can have more, change them, like I said, but let's start looking at these. The first recommendation.
that's
Is that okay?
That's definitely true.
Okay. No, second, what about the second? And I put that number 2055 in there. That's an arbitrary number. What kind of a number do you want in there, or what do we?
It's essentially 30 years.
Right.
Once you get beyond 30 years, it's kind of hard to anticipate not only what the population, what the world's going to be like, but how are you going to be policing it? You know what I mean? That's the technique.
Do you want it to say beyond 30 years? Or what do you want to say there? Again, that was a straw man number.
That's it for the foreseeable future. I don't know how long that is.
Usually we use about a 30-year window is about as far as we go with planning, just because of that. Who knows what 30 years is going to look like?
Well, that was just a dumb number I threw in there. Here's 30 years.
Sometimes we do 20.
Okay.
looks.
Well, is that okay then? 2055?
I would say so.
Like I said, I don't think they're gonna hold us to the fire.
Okay.
If it is not.
Okay, let's take a look. Okay, let's look at the next one here.
Oh, there are more. I was gonna say, I thought we were just two for a minute.
Should the first bullet say, and if the garage isn't built, some alternate parking garage will have to be added to this project?
Yeah. Change it to that.
Because,
If the parking garage is not built.
yeah,
Another sentence we're adding? Is that what it is?
No, I think we can just play with what we got here.
It's not.
Is not built. Not necessary dedicated, yeah, good.
Yeah,
You were an English professor.
no, I was not, I was a finance guy.
Okay.
Economic man.
Yeah, economics, I love economics.
Okay, is that good now, or? Okay, now let's look at this next one, expand facility.
I want to go back to the first one.
Okay,
So I think it was okay in the first one because we're saying if the lot is there, if the garage is there, dedicate that first floor, right?
Yes, that's what it did say.
Yeah.
oh,
So I'm saying take that
Add a
out
sentence.
and then add a sentence saying,
okay,
if no parking garage, put a fence.
okay, there you go.
Alternate secure parking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Okay, good, thank you. Good job. Okay, next on, the character design.
Yay.
Yeah, okay. Where are we at now? Oh, public entry.
It can be easily found public entry. Easily identified, I mean.
Let's put that in.
I didn't know that was the entrance to the police department. I've come in that entrance to the building about 4 times. And I never did figure, I didn't know that we were down
You
there.
haven't been
Well,
chased.
I say no disrespect to anybody. The first time I came here in broad daylight, and I'm walking through those doors, I'm like, what what is this?
Yeah, I just.
It's kinda freaky out.
Basement entry to the.
No offense, I'm not, just like, wow, this is not where's the police department here? I saw a sign outside. All right, so must have an easily found public entry that can be, okay, is that?
Well, yeah, something like that, 'cause that's what we kept saying.
Yeah. Is that good with everybody? Okay. And if you haven't noticed it yet, a lot of this is coming right back from the priorities that you identified and the goals. Does that work as far as the kind of the layout? Okay.
That's important.
Okay, that's good on storage?
Yep.
Okay. Witness protection, confidentiality. Okay, is that good?
Yeah.
Gotta consult the attorney, make it right. Okay. Okay, so now I got a question mark. The Liberty Police Community Group finds the cost estimate appropriate. And you can either say, no, we do not find the cost estimate appropriate. I mean, this is your recommendation. So again, change it, support it, say heck no, whatever. What do you want to say or do for the cost? And I think.
Well, I'm assuming these guys have been vetted and I trust them.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Well, in having worked with some other communities, okay, what normally I've seen, that's where up to the amount of.
We don't know that.
Right.
And I can't address and say, yeah, you got an open checkbook, whatever the amount is. Because we don't know, first of all, she didn't know how they're gonna fund it. They say it's sales tax.
Okay.
How much money does that sales tax generate? And is all the money from the sales tax gonna be used to pay for this initially? Or is it gonna be used for other things in addition to?
Gotcha.
Now, I have some information because I serve on the Public Sales Tax Committee.
Oh.
And we were told the other night that part of this money would be used for police operations as well, to help support the public sales tax, which we're going to be about in the hole in 26. But
then do we put a period here? We recommend the city seek public funding, period?
I mean, we do know the high end number though. Like, is that what we would utilize there?
That's what the up to means.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that's what the city's gonna spend. It's not what they're gonna try to do, but.
Does this,
Well, whatever we put there, people are gonna use that on the
Yeah,
street talking about it.
yeah, if we put in
Oh, I
there
know.
20 million
We'll be held
and it goes to
accountable.
23 million, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'd rather-
Well, that's kind of why I asked the question of their accuracy rate, because I don't know what the industry rate is. That's,
I think their accuracy rate probably tremendous. I had no difficulty with this. I just know the people of Liberty, if you tell them one price and you're over it, they're gonna wanna know why.
Well, we've got an owner contingency right above that first yellow bar there of 770,000, 5%. That's on top of those other contingencies we talked about. We don't have those big public plazas. That's probably $500,000. If we're gonna put solar on this building and we can build up to about 150 kW, that's between $350,000 and $500,000 for that.
so you can still finish this thing and leave some things off that are not absolutely mission essential.
We could, and we would bid those as alternates, so we get a really hard number. And if quite frankly, something weird's happened in the bid economy, we might not get solar. If that's the lowest hanging fruit and that's what the recommendation would be, or that canopy that covers the Sally Port, or however they might do it. That's the way we fine tune our numbers to make sure we don't go over budget. Because if we go over budget, we look bad, the city looks bad, the police look bad, all this committee, you know what I mean? So we've got strategies to keep us in the number.
Let me ask the city, would you like there to be no number from a recommendation? This is a recommendation no matter what you say, but
I think that the public's gonna wanna see a number, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that right now for the draft, I'd start at 20.
Yeah,
I would say 20.
How about 1909?
Do I hear it?
1995.
No, I think it's 20,
Up to 20 million?
and we can refine that by your final draft, but.
Okay, yeah, we got a couple weeks or, yeah, about 2 weeks before our next meeting. Okay,
Because then that gives you a kind of a not to exceed, because you've got an up to the amount of.
Right, that's what we're trying to
That kind
say.
of tops it out at a good,
And if there's other fees added on top of that, then
Right.
that will also be
Cover
part of the
that, yeah.
discussion, but I think this part of it's 20.
yeah, I like the 20.
is everybody good with that? Okay, Bill, good?
Yeah, I have no trouble with that.
Okay, this might be redundant.
I have trouble paying it.
Where did I have something in there about funding before? Now, one thing I don't have in here is that public space. I didn't put anything in there. It might fall under that aesthetics thing, but
Yeah, because we funded it. We funded the plaza just with that 20 million.
okay.
So, because everybody wanted it, so.
We went ahead and like create public civic space.
Yeah, I'd create a whole new bullet.
You want to do it at a certain place, Steve?
Is there a spot where it talks about the front door and the ability to find the police?
Right here.
We sort of did.
Easily
Right,
find public
it's right
service.
there.
Yeah.
For Dr. Webley to jam out on his guitar.
And I don't play guitar, but I love listening to other people.
Okay.
That's not okay. Public outdoor civic space shall be provided for use by all.
Is that detailed enough for you?
Or you want something?
No, I don't know. I'm just asking.
I think civic space is a good way to
Yeah, but
define it.
I think this town's big into that kind of stuff. That's,
Okay, what are we missing that you want to recommend?
Just a crazy addition there. Every bullet starts with the, except for the last one we just added. So
The expanded police facility must have,
so you want this one to do the same way?
like the others supposed to.
She'll have a little piece.
You just,
That will provide.
that will provide.
Oh, were you an English major?
No, he was the guy who invented AI.
Oh,
You think about it, it just comes up. He just corrects it for you.
what are we missing? What do we got to fix?
I'd feel a whole lot better if we knew how they were, but it's not our decision how they were gonna fund it, whether they're gonna have a bond proposal or sales tax. I mean, we
I
don't know.
heard sales, I heard nothing about a bond.
It would probably have to be a bond for 20 years,
Oh, okay.
but paid for by the ones that are buying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah,
So it would be a bond
yes, most likely.
paid for by the
A sales tax.
a sales tax. And when that amount of the stuff was done, does it sunset then?
We don't know yet, depending on if there are other things attached to it.
But that's for them to work out, right? That's really not our.
Okay. No, it's not. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm just asking for, my
You
you know,
know, the taxpayers.
What I'm
are gonna
saying
have
is
that
we
question.
won't be
It's
able to
gonna
spell that out in this, right?
No.
Because that's the unknown for,
well, that's what the city council's gonna have to
right?
spell out.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Missing, correct? Take away, add.
would it make sense to add something on the line of, and maybe we already have it, I just missed it, in regards to the addition as opposed to a brand new space, being the ideal solution? Is that included in?
I
there?
think maybe we,
You kind of said that.
this is kind of a preamble here.
You got a little bit of
So,
line for that if you want.
well, let's add it on the end of this sentence.
What do we want to say?
Up here.
Up there, after fours.
Because therefore, right, then the conclusion is still the same with that
Yeah.
additional language.
Maybe your last sentence. Therefore, this is what we recommend.
Yeah, let's see, currently,
So right there,
additional locations were considered,
we're not feasible or.
location were considered and determined to be not feasible.
I don't know if they're not feasible, but not as desirable, maybe?
Not as cost effective.
Not as cost effective?
Yeah.
I'm like
trying to
that.
sell this baby. I like cost effective.
I like cost effective.
I do too.
Okay,
We like to sell.
Yeah.
We're not selling them a bill of goods. I want to talk about how we're going to fund this thing too.
Okay, what are we missing? What do we gotta take out? What are we correcting?
Facility configures solar. Facility, yeah, there we go.
And again, this is our draft. I'll get you out a copy and we can mull it and make sure we're ready to go for the final. So I want to come to the next meeting with the final, so we can still massage this offline if necessary, but I think this is your meat and potatoes right here.
We are also in the process, just so you know, putting a little bit more fine tooth pencil and getting that cost estimate to jive with we've added the fence and done some things too. So we might have a number, it's probably gonna be almost exactly the same, but if it isn't, we'll let you know.
You're not trying to add costs, are you?
No? No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Doc?
Will our copy have pictures for the public to see? Will this be like?
Oh,
a
so in
document?
addition to a virtual tour, I am working on fact sheets that will show pictures that you'll also see in the video, right? So they'll get to see why these recommendations are coming forward. And we'll take, kind of like there'll be like a need fact sheet, and then there'll be a solution fact sheet, some FAQs. And that's where I really track, and I'm gonna, check out the recording here, because there were some points even tonight that were raised that are gonna be, if you got the question, 10 other people in town got the question. So we'll put some FAQs together for that as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and, if we can, we'll table this now. I'll get the draft out for you to look at, okay? But let's move on to back to the agenda. I think our last item on the agenda.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Just in regards to this document, is there a need for justification for those things? Like, I'm just wondering the functionality of this. Is this simply to say, city, like we say yes, or are we saying
So
yes
the
because?
city asked you to take a look at this situation with their current facility and to give them your best advice of what they should do with addressing that issue.
Okay.
So again, your recommendations you're not setting city policy, you're not binding the city to anything. But as I said from the first meeting, it takes a lot of courage for a town to front load citizen input in trying to reach its decision.
Yeah.
As opposed to deciding something and then going out and trying to defend it.
Got it.
And I think you can tell from the rapport we're having with the city and the folks here, they're listening to you.
Sure.
As we've been going along. They're responding to your questions. And I think that's what you all are doing is basically putting the city in a position to say, hey, your community's asking for this. You don't need to, decide and defend this. We're asking you to go do this thing on behalf of our community. That's kind of what this is really all about.
Cool. I'm good with that.
Okay. And again, compliments to the city. I don't know what you feel about it, but it takes a lot of courage for city government to do this for citizens.
Will you say something like that right above our signature line?
We could do that.
I mean.
Well, and so let's go to next steps so we can get this wrapped up because we gotta get going here.
Did we close stuff out already?
So I think that's something, if that's what you want to add, we can do that. And so let's.
Should have the agenda.
It's far left at the top.
There we go. Okay. All right, so next steps, we're gonna finalize this, okay, which basically means we'll keep wordsmithing it in the background so that when we show up, we're gonna have a couple of hard copies for you to sign, get a group photo, right? Then I've already talked to Kurt, the city administrator, and hopefully with the subsequent council meetings after the 30th, they're like doing study sessions, regular meetings. I think it would be great, not all of you have to show up, but I think it'd be great if we could have you all put on the agenda so that the council and the mayor have any questions, or if you're allowed to make a presentation, you can, almost kind of hand them, hey, here's our recommendations, and talk about why you chosen to suggest what you have.
That's what we're doing tonight with another group that I'm on.
Okay, so that's something that is in the future. We have, I can't remember the date, February 3rd or something.
Second, I believe.
Second, it's the first Monday of February.
For the open house.
For an open house public meeting, and that's, come one, come all. I am gonna scout around, for a good place to, it's like a job fair looking thing, right? We'll have public meeting displays. So some of the fact sheets, all the stuff that we're already talking about, there will be public meeting displays echoing the same information. And we're asking you to really come and, maybe we'll figure out like, hey, who wants to stand at the Meet the Study Group meeting? Who wants to stand at the need meeting? Who wants to, or, the poster station? Who wants to stand at the solution? Who wants to, be with the FAQs? And just know that Hafer, Welker, and city staff are there to supplement and back you up. But really, you've kind of become the community's eyes and ears and many experts on why this, this is being recommended. So that would be the kind of the last step of us together. I'll just say this too. I have seen almost every group that's done what you've done empower themselves to go out and share information with their neighbors and their colleagues and get into the service clubs and things like that. And in fact, I know Jackie put you on a spot. I know you've already talked about talking to the chamber. And that's kind of what it takes for people to make informed decisions as voters. And you're going to help the city council and the mayor be informed decision makers when they, basically make their vote of what they're going to do based on your recommendations, right? So I would encourage you to do that. And there's a little subtle thing there too. I know the city is planning on doing an information campaign because they have to explain why they're asking the voters to support this initiative. The one thing they cannot do is cross a line that says, please vote a certain way. You are not restricted to that. You can say whatever you want to anybody about this project and why the community needs it and what you think.
Muscle up a little bit.
You can do that.
So that's the thing.
I'll leave that to you, Matt.
But I tell you all this for the point that, you have already started carrying the community on your back a little bit here, but the city's in this too, obviously. And they'll be out there doing the things that they properly legally can do to let people know why they're making this ask. Yes.
I've got a question. Sherry, you mentioned that if we were to take this to the ballot in April, it had to be, what was that timeframe?
January 28th.
I'm sorry,
It
what?
has to be certified by January 28th.
January 20th? We're not gonna be able to do that, are we?
No, we are.
We are? Okay.
Yeah, he's saying that after the council has approved it to go to ballot, the meeting that he's talking about in February is because it's already on the recommendation to be on a ballot.
Okay.
We're just giving an open house so people can come and ask questions and understand what they're trying to vote on.
And the meetings in January, there would be a study session, probably a regular session where it would be, this concept, your plan would be presented. And that's, I think, what he was referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so at the city council meeting, they should know before the 28th how they're going to fund it, right?
Oh, yes, because that would have to be, if you're doing a bond, that would have to be on the ballot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well.
I got one other low hanging thing. If we're considering putting solar in this budget, do we want to say that in one of our bullet points? Talk about energy efficiency or solar, have I gotten into the weeds too far? Because we didn't really tell them we're gonna fence the parking lot, but we kind of did.
We said secure parking.
Yeah, secure parking. Do we need to put solar on there? Is that a thing that could be a death wish to the project?
Well, I would like to see the number. I mean, once you know the numbers, but if it's got a discounted payback period of 10 years, we've got a 30-year building, then the solar helps pay for the building.
Yeah, and we know those
So
numbers.
get me something quick on that, and as
That's
we're
right.
still offline massaging this.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll take a kind of a vote of folks once we have some more information.
Okay, so we're gonna update the cost a little bit here and add solar in there as a line item. You can see what it is. We've already analyzed it. We know how big it is.
Do it quick and do it accurately.
Do it quick and accurate. That's the way we like it.
All right, folks. Wow.
Great group.
Look what you did. That's amazing. So that's it. We're adjourned until the 6th. No, the 30th, Steve, 30th.
And that's across the street?
Oh, that's right now, across the
Oh,
street.
no, I thought we were meeting over there. No, on 30th.
Yeah, come back here.
And all we gotta do is